Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. As you know, we like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you. We're all busy people. We have other things that we need to do. We have a standard format, and we spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of some of these other pre-valued currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq today as we speak. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The most relevant piece of information, of course, would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that the viable window would be from September 1st through January of 2021. And the way things are shaping up, I think we're a lot closer to seeing something happen in September rather than postponing it all the way to January of 2021. Now, this is largely because the Al-Kazimi government is moving very quickly on a lot of fronts to resolve all of the issues that would be an impediment to the reinstitution and revaluation of their currency. First, of course, they're seeking a stronger relationship with the United States, and they're in the process right now of negotiating the rebuilding of their electrical grid nationally. This is important, and it has international implications. Not surprisingly, the Chinese that are global cheaters at everything that they touch are trying to nose in and take care of that electrical grid situation for Iraq themselves. Of course, they can underbid prices because they basically use slave labor to accomplish whatever it is that they want. Fortunately, Al-Kazimi is not going to be played by these people, at least so far that's the case. He seems to understand that way back in 2003, the United States and Iraq entered into an agreement for the liberation of Iraq, which allowed the United States the right of first refusal for some of these major contracts. In addition, and I don't want to get too much into the geopolitical issue, but China is becoming a real problem. They are helping support North Korea. They've broken their promise with regard to the autonomy of Hong Kong. They are threatening the invasion of Taiwan. They are building these artificial islands in the South China Sea in order to obstruct normal trade routes. They're trying to establish the Silk Road Initiative, which would give them control of all of the trade in the Far East and the Middle East. They're attempting to replace the Western U.S.-based SWIFT banking system with their own banking system. And as a matter of fact, as we speak, the Chinese consulate in Houston is being closed because of massive attempts at stealing intellectual property from the United States. So China has posed a real problem, and the Kazimi government basically has told China that they're going to be dealing with the United States. Al-Kazimi has also negotiated some short-term energy deals with Saudi Arabia, and they've entered into a currency exchange deal with Iran. Now, this is significant for a couple of reasons. First, it's significant for Iraq because it's the Iraqis, through the Kazimi government, is demonstrating to the world that they intend to pursue a non-sectarian approach to international affairs. So this is why they can work with the Saudis, who are, in essence, one sect, and the Iranians, The Saudis, of course, Sunni, and the Iranians that are Shia. So basically what they're saying is we're doing business with people for business reasons, not global, sectarian, or tribal reasons. With regard to Iran, the currency exchange deal is important because basically Iran is letting the world know that they understand that the revaluation of the Iranian rial is linked to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. I would go so far to say that the rial, along with a handful of other currencies, are going nowhere in terms of their revaluation till the Iraqi dinar revalues. So Iran is basically in timeout. They understand that there are very few ways they can circumvent the United States sanctions. So they're simply going to have to behave themselves if they want to see the rial revalue, which of course would assist their economy greatly. Now, the EU has recently upgraded investment status of Iraq, first from no-go to high risk, and now they're no longer classified as a high-risk investment, and the French foreign minister is scheduling a visit to Iraq in the near future. So it looks as though that the Iraqis are renewing their relationships with the EU as well. But lastly, and most importantly, even though it's not been on the front burner of the news, the Al-Kazemi government is currently working with several intelligence agencies to finally open the corrupt files for the corrupt Iraqi officials and for the delivery of those files to the Supreme Court of Iraq for adjudication. So the Al-Kazemi government really is moving at light speed to check all of the boxes in order for the reinstitution of their currency. That's why I believe that the reinstitution will occur closer to September than to January of 2021. So this is all good news. Of course, the situation in Iraq for the last decade has been fluid. There's always been X factors floating around out there. But it looks as though the Al-Kazemi government means business. They've put China on notice. They've put the countries that are at war with one another in the Middle East on notice. They are entering into contracts and investment with a variety of countries that don't even like one another. They're basically saying, look, we'll do business with you. Your problem with these other countries is your problem. So they are becoming a non-sectarian, functioning, modern nation-state, and they're doing so in really, really quick time. And we're in the best position we've been in probably since going all the way back to 2012 when, of course, Maliki and Obama were behind the issue with the reinstitution of the currency in country. Now, I'm going to make one other domestic political statement, and it's this. In my opinion, this needs to happen before the election. And the reason I think it does is because if Joe Biden is elected as president, two things are going to happen, in my opinion. Number one, we're not going to see the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar anytime soon. And again, this is just my opinion. And second, you got to remember that the Obama-Biden administration was very friendly to the Iranians and to the Chinese for complicated reasons I don't need to get into right now. But that's going to happen again if Joe Biden is president. And so we want, for a number of reasons, this to happen in September. But if it should not happen in September, in my opinion, we're going to have a problem if Joe Biden is elected as president. So I'm just throwing that out there because I think it's relevant. So let's hope that this gets done in September or at the very latest October, so that irrespective of what happens in the election, we've all basically profited from our investments, some of us have been invested for over a decade, and we're able to take that money, invest it wisely for ourselves, for our families, for our future. And the results of the election, if we handle this this windfall properly will have no effect on our lives and the lives of our children and grandchildren. Now, this being said, we're moving very quickly to this event. Most Dinarians are hardworking, middle-class American people that have never had a substantial amount of wealth to manage. And it is a full-time job, especially when it comes to you overnight and you've not had on-the-job training. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It is a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV or Phase 2 involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. There's very specific reason why we established a package of trusts and why that package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies. And I'm going to review this with you in some detail. Now, there are a number of other entities one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs, sub-S corporations, and family limited partnerships. And these entities all provide some level of asset protection. But the problem is these are business entities, and the protection they provide is by separating business interests from personal interests. But these currencies are a personally held asset, so that poses a problem. In addition, courts have ruled that these entities, LLCs, sub-S corporations, and family limited partnerships, if owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group, can be pierced for civil litigation. So these entities are going to be inappropriate for our needs. Some individuals have established revocable or living or loving trusts, and these trusts can exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some cases can substantially reduce and even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable or living or loving trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and that is the best asset protection among the entities I've just described. But even the single irrevocable trust has an inherent flaw, and it's this. All of your assets are housed within that one entity. So if anything within that entity is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation. So the single irrevocable trust is going to be inappropriate for our needs. The only bulletproof asset protection available in the United States of America is a package of irrevocable trusts. And if you are the holder of these currencies, like any other asset that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value, you're going to want to transfer the asset to this trust package prior to the appreciation of that asset. And I'm going to review with you the reasons why. By assigning your pre-valued currencies to our asset protection trust package pre-RV, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies have revalued, and you have many other things that you'd rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of an IRS 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust is in place and you have assigned your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust package. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included in this package is a special gift subtrust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. And after this revaluation would be the time to discuss philanthropic gifting. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust. And because you're gifting through this gift subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, the language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will have complete control of those post-RV U.S. dollars, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be made aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there is something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess through the probate process in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by the master trust. This is what constitutes the package. Now, how does this protect you from an asset protection standpoint? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault. And tragically, someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards. and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole, and all of your other assets are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, not being in any way involved in the accident in question, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue those separate legal entities or persons. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that you will need and want after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I will just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have already expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists at this seminar. Now that you've acquired this wealth, you are going to need, perhaps for the first time in your life, assistance with more of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax liability. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So this is another reason to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets in order to avoid that financial volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust which at any time can be converted to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But about a decade ago, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable. So we basically simplified that trust package. And by doing so, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust package, with the balance of the $3,000 paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd be paying us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works for you. Again, our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation for all of the reasons that we've stated here today. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in a moment, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation information package. Our trust product was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have actually been working together for a little over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. But under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family those situations where you have lost control of the situation. Things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. We will be going to the Q&A in just a moment. I will be giving you all of our contact information, so I suggest you have a pen and paper handy in order to write this information down. You can contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about trust, about the revaluation. Should you decide to proceed, everything you need has been included in the package, but again, that's entirely your decision. After reviewing the package, if you still have questions, you can contact us by phone or email. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We don't take service calls on the Q&A. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have any service questions. And the second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Again, that's trusts with an S, unlimitedllc at llc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc at gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, emails may go out as often as weekly. So let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is from New York. Okay, I recently heard that the European Union has a blacklist on Iraq due to money laundering concerns. Now, would that affect the RV?
No. All of the things that are taking place right now are happening precisely in preparation of the reinstitution. So, no, that should have no effect at all.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. That was quick. Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City.
Hey, Doug. How you doing?
I'm doing well. A couple of questions. You mentioned the currency exchange with Iran. Could you elaborate more on that, please, what that entails and what that really means as far as us?
It means nothing for us.
Okay.
What it means is that they're not going to be utilizing the dollar. They're going to be working with their own currencies. They're both recognizing the value of their own currencies. So this, again, that's why I said Iran is being forced to behave themselves. Basically, Iraq's saying, well, you're not going to be able to circumvent our auctions and through your corrupt officials to get a hold of U.S. dollars to circumvent the international sanctions. If we're going to do business, it's going to be with the use of our own currencies.
Very good. You did mention that you thought that from September 1st onward might be a probable date. In that Trump is a businessman, if he can make this happen to make it most beneficial, I know it would be better for all of us if it happened in the first part of October, but that might not give enough time for the effect of what this is going to have economically for people and for a country perhaps to set in. There's just not enough time between October 1st and November 3rd. So with that in mind, we could be scrambling if this happens in the early part of September.
I agree. But the point I was trying to make is my concern is if for any reason Joe Biden is elected, I don't think that's going to happen. But if it were to happen, I don't think the revaluation is going to happen anytime soon, if ever.
Well, I agree with that.
They're going to step away. They're going to let China march in there and take all of the contracts for the rebuilding of the infrastructure, the electrical grid. Iran will go on a tear. And now, this is my personal opinion, but to me, a Biden presidency is absolutely frightening.
Well, they're scrambling like crazy to keep all this information from the links to Epstein quiet, as you have noticed in all the things that have happened since that lady was going to testify. From that perspective, I mean, Biden could be just as much implicated in all this as the Clintons, but that's another story. From the perspective of our investment, if this happens, we don't have much time in order to affect the payment of the taxes. That's my concern.
Well, wait a minute. Remember, if this were to happen, I think that we might have a tax moratorium until next year.
Well, that would be wonderful.
I could be wrong. I actually think that's being factored in to what's going on.
Well,
I think that's a consideration. Remember, nothing, the administration does not at any time ever mention the Iraqi dinar or any of these pre-valued currencies. Well, we know that they're very much aware that 6 to 8 million Americans hold these currencies, and that Iraq is working very, very hard to get to a point to reinstitute them. So I just think there's a lot in the calculus that's intentionally not discussed.
Well, I was listening to Trump the other day, and he almost in passing, and it was glazed over by the media. He said, in the next 6 to 8 weeks, there are going to be a lot of things that are going to come forth that will actually surprise a lot of people. And the statement came and went, and I was thinking, what does he mean by that? But I would imagine that he has a number of initiatives that's going to affect the momentum and maybe change some opinion on his electability between now and November 3rd.
Well, he does have a habit of making rather cryptic statements. So I'm hoping, like I said, that in his calculus and in his agenda is making sure that this happens. Not because it would help him in his election, although in my opinion it would, because I think he thinks it's the right thing for the American citizens.
I do too. I just, from the perspective of we can only hope there's a moratorium, but if the rules stay the same, we'll all be paying taxes by October 15th.
Right. And if we get caught in the squeeze, what we're going to do is, unfortunately, we might be forced, if we don't get I've said this, I'll just go ahead and explain this one more time. We've attempted to get a private letter ruling from the IRS on the taxation of the revaluation of these currencies, both in and outside of a trust. They've declined to respond, and they bumped it to the Treasury Department. once the reinstitution of the dinar happens, we're going to be sending a very tersely worded letter to the IRS and the Treasury, basically implying that we will take civil action if they don't give us a response, because we have a right to know what the tax implications are. Now, if that fails, unfortunately, we're going to be forced probably to pay the ordinary income tax and prematurely exchange our currency. So what we're going to prepare is a letter for a refund that will go in with our taxes, citing 980.82 and 643B of the Internal Revenue Code as the reason why we shouldn't have to pay the ordinary income tax. We hope it doesn't come to that, but we have no choice. If that's what happens, that's what happens.
And based on the fact that we don't know what the value is going to be coming out of the gate, if it comes out at $1 and it hangs around there and we're forced to exchange a good portion of our holdings in order to pay the taxes, that's where the bite's going to be, because once the currency has been turned in, you're not going to be able to claw it back. And if it goes to $3.50 later, that's just tough, I guess.
Well, suppose we're at a bracket point, and we say to ourselves, look, it's at $1. I'll just give you a hypothetical. It's at $1.10 right now, and it's the end of the quarter. I might run the risk and say, you know what, I'm not going to pay the tax, and I'm going to end up having to pay 100% penalty, but this thing could go to $4. So even after I pay the penalty, if I hold off, I'm still going to make more money at the end of the day.
The tax is the value at the end of the last day of the quarter?
Yes. Okay. So if it appreciates, that appreciation would be taxed the next quarter because it would spill into the next quarter. So some people that roll the dice, or they might just keep some of their currency and say, look, if it goes to $4, I'm better off paying the penalty and holding on to my currency and let it appreciate. I'm not suggesting anyone do that. Believe me, we don't need the IRS kicking our door down. We're not saying that. I'm just saying high risk rollers might employ a strategy like that. That's not what we recommend. We recommend you pay your taxes and invest wisely, So let's just hope we don't get caught in a vice, with the time.
I have several friends that own Dinar, and they are adamant that, they're not going to exchange it, or when they need the money, they'll exchange it. And I tell them, at least based on what I believe I know by listening to you, that the tax is going to be owed whether they turn those dinars into the bank or not, because the asset
go to 988E2 and read the very last sentence. It says, if the profit that you would ordinarily realize from the exchange exceeds $200, you must pay the tax. They're not only telling you there's a tax, they're telling you the tax is the taxable event is the reval itself, not the point of exchange. So they're going to be very unhappy people if they play fast and loose with the IRS on this. Yeah, they could get lucky and the IRS could rule in their favor, but if they lose, it's all gone, and they're going to end up owing more than they actually realized from the gain.
And you say that's 988, what was it?
988E2. Hold on a second. Hold on a sec. I may have it here. Hold on. Yeah, let me read you the last sentence of this.
And the other one was 643B?
643B refers to the tax deferral if the exchange were to happen within an irrevocable trust such as ours. 988E2. No gain shall be recognized by reason of changes in exchange rate after such currency was acquired by such individual or before the disposition, meaning the exchange. However, the preceding sentence shall not apply if the gain which would otherwise be recognized on the transaction exceeds $200. In other words, there's no deferral to disposition, meaning the exchange. The tax is due if the reval happens in a given quarter, that means the tax is due on the 15th of the next quarter.
If we have an in-country reinstatement on the 25th of September, but we have a worldwide recognized currency that happens on or about the 10th of October by the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the IMF, and the U.S. Treasury. Is the initial reinstatement the date, or is it the?
That's one of the issues we addressed when we contacted them. Basically, our understanding from the past is the reinstitution in country does not mean, in other words, I can't go to the bank and exchange the currency for the reinstituted value. The American bank won't do that. So technically, there's no taxable event for us as an American citizen.
So if it does take 30 days, it might actually push it into the fourth quarter.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just something we don't have any. It's like roulette. You play your money down, and we don't have any control over the timing.
Right. I understand. Jim, again, thank you very much as always.
Sure.
Listen to you next week. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Take care, my friend. Well, Doug was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Looks like we're getting close, folks. So those of you that have not as yet getting your affairs in order, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation informative package. It does include everything you need should you decide to proceed, but again, that's entirely your decision. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call is, of course, scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, 9 Eastern, noon Pacific. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.